Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the IURC North America webinar, which is part of the learning and exchange activities of our thematic network on nature-based solutions. A warm welcome to our audience from our network cities and also to participants from outside our network. We're happy that you have decided to share this time with us today. Our webinar will focus on nature-based solutions to reduce flooding risks in cities with some leading examples from Europe and the United States and Canada. My name is Jacinthe Séguin. As the practitioner supporting the activities of the thematic group, I will be your moderator for today, and also supported by colleagues Anna and Eva from the IURC team. Before we begin, I have a few housekeeping notes. You will notice that participants' microphones are muted. This is to ensure a good recording quality for the webinar. We will be posting the recording, the presentations, and a summary fact sheet on our website, so you can just sit back and listen to our excellent speakers. Second, to keep things simple, the chat on the right of your screen, I think most of you will have it on the right of your screen, will be our main communication tool, where you can reach us and pose questions on the presentations, which I will direct to respective speakers during the Q&A period after the presentations. To get started, I would encourage you to introduce yourselves in the chat and indicate where you're from and any other information you want to share with your colleagues. Finally, I would like to greet our participants from all over Canada and the United States and Europe. So I know that for some of you, it is very early morning and others are joining at the end of their day. We look forward to all your insights and questions. Now to our speakers. I am pleased to introduce Ms. Stephanie Roskopf from the European Union delegation to Canada, who will provide some opening remarks. Thank you very much, Stephanie, for supporting these collaborations and for your remarks today. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Jackson. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, and a warm welcome to all of you from the European Union. My name is Stephanie, and I'm a policy officer based here at the EU delegation to Canada. And I am personally very excited to participate today because I share a personal connection with both Calgary and Boston, having lived in both cities. The EU is very excited to host this first webinar on nature-based solutions today. As Jackson mentioned, it focuses on reducing urban flooding risks from stormwater. It's wonderful to see so many cities participating from both sides of the Atlantic. The EU defines nature-based solutions, or NBS, as solutions that are inspired and supported by nature, which are cost-effective, simultaneously provide environmental, social, and economic benefits, and help build resilience. They bring more and more diverse nature into cities, landscapes, and seascapes through locally adapted, resource-efficient, and systematic interventions. Nature-based solutions are at the core of many EU policies. For example, the EU Green Deal, the Biodiversity Strategy for 2030, or the EU Adaptation Strategy, all of which promote nature-based solutions. EU funding programs such as Horizon Europe support research and innovation and support and encourage cities and other actors to pilot nature-based solutions. Projects like Network Nature demonstrate this in practice. Initiatives such as the new European Bauhaus, the EU Green Infrastructure Strategy, or the EU Urban Agenda encourage cities to voluntarily adopt these solutions in Europe. Cities are central to this transition. They are where the benefits of nature-based solutions are most tangible, from reducing flood risks to enhancing quality of life and creating greener, healthier communities. Today, we will hear about practical tools, solutions, and policies from cities across both sides of the Atlantic, Boston, the Baltic Sea regions, and Calgary in Alberta. I am delighted to welcome our speakers and thank Katie and Briar and Anna in particular for sharing their time and expertise with us today. I also want to thank all of you on behalf of the EU for joining in this very important conversation. The EU looks forward to continuing this exchange and supporting nature-based solutions through future IURC activities. And now I will turn it back to Jacinth, and I look forward to hearing from Kate and Briar.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. And as she mentioned, we're very lucky to be joined by 3 leaders in this field who will share their experiences, how they have piloted different techniques, involved communities, and operationalized some solutions in their city management approaches. We'll also hear of accessible peer networks working on NBS solutions and relevant policy frameworks and standards that are helping cities to advance these practices. Our first speaker is Kate England, Deputy Commissioner of the Massachusetts Department of Environment. Ms. England has a background in engineering, landscape architecture, planning, and policy, and has worked in the public sector in and around Boston for most of her career. Kate was previously the inaugural Director of Green Infrastructure for the City of Boston, appointed in 2022 by Mayor Michelle Wu. She facilitated widespread implementation of green infrastructure and helped pursue the resilience goal outlined in Boston's Green New Deal. Welcome, Kate, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm going to spend a little bit of time today talking about how the city of Boston and Massachusetts are using green infrastructure, nature-based solutions to help mitigate flood risk within the city. Next slide, please. Oh, and next slide. So I just wanted to start with a little bit of table setting. So what is stormwater? So for the city of Boston and in Massachusetts, and I think most of the rest of the world, we define stormwater as when rain or precipitation of some kind is falling on a hard surface, an impervious surface that water cannot pass through, that water runs off and becomes stormwater. And the way that we typically manage stormwater is through a series of pipes and structures that capture that water and carry it typically to a receiving water of some kind, so a river or a lake or a stream. Next slide, please. So in Massachusetts, and I think also largely worldwide, we have 2 major kind of issues with stormwater. The first is a water quality issue, and the second is a water quantity issue. So as stormwater moves across hard surfaces, it picks up a number of pollutants that are currently sitting on those surfaces, things like bacteria and nutrients, litter, and other things, and carries all of that with the water to our water bodies. The second issue, the water quantity issue, is that the majority of our storm drain systems are designed to handle a certain amount of water that falls over a certain amount of time. So during a typical storm, less than an inch of rain falling over a longer period of time, our storm drain systems are able to capture and manage that water. But during larger storm events, which are becoming more frequent and more intense in Massachusetts, we are seeing an inch or 2 inches of rain fall in an hour. So the city of Boston storm drain system is designed to capture 5 inches of rain over the course of 24 hours. So when about an inch of rain or 2 inches of rain falls in an hour, our system just can't keep up. Next slide, please. So thankfully, we have green infrastructure or nature-based solutions. And the way that we are defining those for city of Boston and for Massachusetts are features that use plants and soil and other natural materials to mimic our natural water cycle. They capture stormwater and allow it to absorb back into the ground the way that it would in a more natural, less developed environment. And while that water is absorbing into the ground, soil and plants are acting as filters to remove pollutants from that water. So a couple of examples on the screen. We have bioretention, which are rain gardens and bioswales, tree pits and tree trenches, which look very much like street trees at the surface, but underground have large reservoirs where water can capture, it can collect, and then absorb into the ground. We have constructed wetlands and marshlands, which are human-made wetlands that function very similar to a natural system. And then we also have things like green roofs and living walls. So I've talked a little bit about the water quality and the flood storage benefits of green infrastructure, but there are also a number of what we call co-benefits, which include things like increasing biodiversity, helping to address environmental justice issues, providing opportunities for environmental education, and providing pollinator habitat in our cities. Next slide, please. So I have a couple things that I'm going to be talking about today, ways that the city of Boston and Massachusetts are encouraging the use of green infrastructure and the implementation of nature-based solutions. So I'm going to start with policies and regulations. Next slide, please. So we'd like to think that people will use green infrastructure and nature-based solutions because they are the right thing to do with all these co-benefits, but often we find that we have to start with regulation. And so in that spirit, the city of Boston implemented what we call the Streets Green Infrastructure Policy. And this policy requires that any project in the city that touches streets infrastructure has to implement green infrastructure to manage stormwater. So streets infrastructure could be the right-of-way, so the roads and sidewalks. It can also mean parking lots or maintenance yards, anything that is owned by the city's streets department. We also have the Boston Water and Sewer Commission, which has site plan review requirements. And what this means is any project within the city of Boston that has to go to the Boston Water and Sewer Commission for a permit is required to infiltrate a volume of water that's equal to 1 inch of rain multiplied by the impervious surface on the site. Noting here that the term used is infiltrate, and that'll be relevant in just a minute. And then we also have our state of Massachusetts wetlands regulations, which require that any project that triggers a wetlands permit has to use or has to adhere to the guidelines within the Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook. So I wanted to point out the language matters piece of all of this. So the Boston Water and Sewer Commission site plan review requirements and the wetlands regulations require infiltration or stormwater management. They do not specifically call out green infrastructure or nature-based solutions, whereas the Boston Streets policy is very specific that green infrastructure, vegetated infrastructure must be used for stormwater management. So when you're thinking about policies and regulations, the words that you use in your regs do make a difference. Next slide. I'm going to talk a little bit about maintenance next. This is a question that comes up anytime I give a presentation about green infrastructure, and it's essential to making sure that your nature-based infrastructure is successful and healthy and thrives. Next slide, please. So the city of Boston has a number of contracts that are used to ensure that the green infrastructure in the city is maintained frequently and properly. So the first contract that we have is a landscape maintenance contract, which focuses on maintaining the vegetation in our green infrastructure. The second is a porous paving maintenance contract, which is a different contractor, and that is responsible for maintaining all of our porous paved solutions. So porous asphalts, porous pavers, and other resin-bound stones. So surfaces that are not vegetated, but are still allowing water to pass through and absorb into the ground. We are a public low bid system in Boston and in Massachusetts. I'm not sure how transferable this is in other countries, but in the United States, we have systems where you, as a municipality or a state, are often required to award your contract to the bidder who bids the lowest contract value, which sometimes results in services not being as I guess contractors not being as qualified. Sometimes it results in kind of lesser services provided because you're asking for the least expensive option. And so as a way to kind of work within that system, the city of Boston has started to use what I call creative contracting, which means that rather than bidding a contract through a quote system where the lowest quote wins, we are now using an RFP or a request for proposals system, which means that we are allowed to award the contract based on the approach that the contractor submits. So we are able to pick a contractor who proposes the best approach to vegetation maintenance as opposed to the cheapest approach. Another thing that we're doing is we're using the city's certified businesses list, which are minority and women-owned businesses within the city of Boston to award contracts for maintenance that can be up to $250,000. So what this means is contractors that are on this certified businesses list are able to submit proposals, and we are able to pick from 3 quotes and award to the contractor that we have selected based on their approach and their cost. Next slide, please. We also have something that is called Thursdays with Power Corps. So we have a Power Corps program in the city of Boston, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. But the program is a youth earn and learn program. So it is specifically for young people in the city of Boston who are interested in getting into green careers. And so this program has been a wonderful addition to our city, and through the urban greening track, because there are several program tracks, we have young people who are helping us to perform maintenance on the city's green infrastructure features. So you can see some of the young people in the image here are part of our program. The participants are taught how to do general green infrastructure maintenance. So, weed removal, litter removal, removing debris, and planting and things like that. They're also taught how to prune vegetation, as well as just basic fundamentals about climate change, about how green infrastructure works, and why we would like to be using green infrastructure to help reduce flooding in the city. We also it's called the National Green Infrastructure Certification Program. It's a nationally recognized license that, certification that shows that this individual is knowledgeable about green infrastructure maintenance. So the students or the participants in the program go through this training, and then at the end of the program receive a license that they can put on a resume or use when they apply for jobs. Next slide, please. We also have the Green Infrastructure Volunteer Program, which is a really wonderful community-based program that enables our residents and folks who live and work and play within Boston to help be part of our green infrastructure maintenance. The program allows people to adopt a green infrastructure feature in their neighborhood, and then they are able to, after going through training and receiving protective equipment and things from the city, they're able to go out and do green infrastructure maintenance on their own time. We found that a lot of people wanted to be part of the maintaining green infrastructure in the city, but were unavailable at the times that we were holding volunteer events. And so this program, which took a lot of negotiation with the city's legal team to get a waiver that everyone was comfortable with, allows people to go out and maintain green infrastructure when they're available, instead of having to make time when we're hosting events. Next slide, please. So I've talked a little bit about engaging community and how important it is to have people involved in the design and implementation of nature-based solutions in your city. So I'm going to share one example of many of how we have engaged young people in the city, as well as neighborhood residents in these programs. So this is the East Boston Early Education Center. This is one of our schools in the city of Boston. And the image on the left is a section of sidewalk, but hard surface, that was not doing much, was not being used. And as you can see, the school was experiencing standing water in this location. And this is just, one photo of many that we received from the school showing, this sidewalk or this hard surface doesn't help us in any way, and we have all this flooding, and we'd love to do something else with this space. So we put together it's a form, it's a Google form that we asked the school teachers and students to fill out. The form had it's a number of photos of plants that do well in green infrastructure features. And the students were able to vote using the form which plants they thought were the prettiest or the most interesting that they wanted to see in this rain garden. So based on the results from the form that the students filled out as part of their classroom activities, we purchased plant material and brought the plant material to the school and installed this rain garden with the students and their families and staff at the school. Next slide, please. So you can see in these images, wonderful young people helping to plant, learning about the plants that were being installed, actually physically planting them themselves. Next slide, please. And this is what the garden looks like today. The principal at the school has told us that every time it rains, the children run to her office or run to the windows and say, the rain garden is getting the rain garden is helping. And it's just this wonderful, positive addition to their schoolyard that the teachers are now able to use for, for education, and that the kids are really proud that they were part of installing. Next slide. So the last thing I want to talk about quickly is stormwater utility fees. All of these wonderful projects, the maintenance that I talked about, and all of these pictures are they require money to build them and to maintain them. So I wanted to kind of spend a little bit of time just chatting through what a stormwater utility is and why you might want to consider one, for your municipality. Next slide. So our stormwater utility fees, why might you want one in your municipality? So the first is managing stormwater is not, it's not cheap, it's expensive. And stormwater utilities can create a predictable funding source so that you can do the maintenance that needs to be done, so you can build the infrastructure that needs to be built, so that you can care for your green infrastructure. Stormwater fees are predictable, which means that you know how much money you're going to have at any given time, and it doesn't vary from year to year. So most of the municipalities in the United States, we have a general fund that's funded by taxes. I believe this is also true outside of the United States. And so the general fund is very competitive. There are lots of needs in a municipality. Our fire department needs funding, our schools need funding, our basic infrastructure needs all need funding. And so sometimes it's really difficult for a green infrastructure program, a nature-based infrastructure program, to compete with some of these other needs. So a stormwater fee can be used only for stormwater management, only for green infrastructure, which means that you know how much money you're going to have and you're able to plan for multiple years in advance. We also typically use water and sewer fees in cities in the United States. And sewer fees are not based on the contribution to stormwater or the amount of stormwater that your site generates. They're based on how much water you use and how much of that water needs to be processed by the sewer system. So sites that have large amounts of hard surface, like a Home Depot or something, which has a large warehouse and then a large parking lot, but maybe only has 2 bathrooms, pays a very small amount into the sewer fee. Whereas a residence, a single family home or an apartment building that has, a very small amount of hard surface, but has, many bathrooms and kitchens, pays a lot of money into the sewer fee. So essentially what we have is a situation where the residents are paying more for stormwater management, but are not actually creating most of the stormwater in the city. And also you can use stormwater fees to incentivize green infrastructure. So typically a stormwater fee is going to have a couple of different elements. There's the actual fee itself, which is very similar to a water or sewer fee, except that it's based on stormwater generation. They typically have credit programs, which means you can reduce your fee by doing an activity that helps to manage stormwater. And then they also can have grant programs, which means that the municipality or the utility can give money out to the public so that they can build green infrastructure on their properties, which is helpful because it then enables the public to help with this management. Next slide, please. All right, so the stormwater fees can be based on a couple of different things. The most common is to have them based on the amount of impervious cover or the hard surface that you have on your property. So the more paving, the more buildings you have, the higher your fee. Usually, there's a couple of different ways you can structure your rate. Some of them are equivalent residential unit, which is like an average. Some of them is, 1 cent per every square foot. Or you can do a tiered model. So if you have, a range of impervious cover, you're in tier 1, more impervious cover, you're in tier 2, and then more impervious cover, you're in tier 3. They can also be based on land use type. This is very similar to how we do water quality work in the United States. So if you have an industrial or a commercial property, your fee is higher, whereas if you have a residential property, your fee is lower. And then another is it can be based on volume contributions. So if you have a combined sewer system where your sewer and stormwater are managed by the same set of pipes, the more stormwater you are contributing to the combined system, the higher your fee is. Next slide, please. So what are your goals? Like what you're trying to accomplish with the stormwater fee should dictate how you set it up. So if your goal is to generate as much revenue as you can so that the municipality or the state or the county can manage stormwater, then you're going to want a higher rate and really clear information about what happens if you don't pay. What are the fines and fees if you don't pay your bill? If your goal is to get more assistance from the public, you want to engage people in this work, you want to have a really strong credit program, something that's easy to navigate so that people understand how to apply for credits to reduce their fees. You're also going to want a rate that's high enough so that people are encouraged to apply for credits. So if your rate is really low, most people will say, I'll just pay the fee and then I won't have to worry about maintaining green infrastructure on my property. And if your goal is to really change behavior across your municipality, like get people involved, really have people thinking about climate resilience and stormwater, you're going to want a really generous grant program and a credit program to get people excited about helping to manage stormwater, building green infrastructure, maintaining green infrastructure. And you're also going to want a lot of resources and support so that people can apply for the grants and apply for the applications. Next slide, please. All right, so contact information is on the screen. I am so excited to hear from our additional presenters. Thank you so much for the time today. And please feel free to reach out or ask questions during the question and answer period if you'd like more information about anything that I shared. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kate. Excellent presentation, and to kick off this webinar as well. I'll just remind everyone to register your questions for Kate in the chat box so that we can direct questions to her at the end. Our second speaker is Reed Breyer from Calgary, the city of Calgary. She's a water resource engineer in the Climate and Environment Department and part of the stormwater management team that implements the 2023 stormwater management strategy that includes natural infrastructure, low impact development, and green stormwater infrastructure as one of the cornerstones of Calgary's strategy. So welcome, Reed. It is early morning for you. Very grateful that you joined us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sethant. I'm delighted to join everyone from all over the world today to talk about Calgary and our approach to using nature-based solutions. Let's advance the slide here. Thank you. I am speaking from Calgary, but I'm also speaking from the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 Nation in southern Alberta, or region in southern Alberta. The city of Calgary, where the Bow and Elbow rivers meet, was historically a place of confluence where the sharing of resources, ideas, and opportunities naturally come together. Long before Scottish settlers named it Calgary, the original Indigenous nations of this area had their own names for this land. In the Blackfoot language, it is called Mohkinstsis. The Ithaca, Nakota, Wiskatabi Nation, First Nations refer to this place as Wichispa Oyade. And the people of the Tsuut'ina Nation call it Gutsis. The Métis also of this region call it Otusquane. I acknowledge all Indigenous people who have made Calgary their home, which is also now my home and the place where my feet are currently resting. Next slide, please. So stormwater management in Calgary is shaped by this city's unique geography, rapid urban growth, and increasingly variable climate. We are a relatively big city on a relatively small river with approximately 1.6 million people withdrawing and returning water from the Bow River, which has an average flow rate of approximately 400 cubic meters per second. We're located next to the foothills of the Rocky Mountains at the confluence of the Bow and Elbow rivers. Historically, Calgary's landscape included numerous wetlands and natural depressions that helped retain and slowly release stormwater, supporting biodiversity and protecting downstream water quality. However, many of these features have been lost or fragmented due to urban development, reducing the land's natural capacity to absorb and filter runoff. Additionally, Calgary's semi-arid climate, marked by intense summer storms, freeze-thaw cycles, periods of drought, adds complexity to managing both the quantity and quality of runoff to sensitive aquatic ecosystems in the rivers. Urbanization has significantly increased impervious surfaces, which disrupt the natural hydrologic cycle and contribute to flooding, erosion, and water quality degradation. In response, the City of Calgary has developed a stormwater strategy that blends conventional infrastructure with innovative nature-based approaches to build resilience and safeguard our water resources. Common nature-based solutions, or green stormwater infrastructure, as we call them in Calgary, employed here include green roofs, constructed wetlands, preserved wetlands, wet ponds, naturalized wet ponds, resilient landscaping, and bioretention. So let me tell you a little bit more about our climate in the next slide. As a climate and our existing pre-development conditions have really driven our inspiration for nature-based solutions in Calgary and also informed our approach to stormwater management directly. Calgary has a semi-arid climate, as I mentioned, characterized by relatively low annual precipitation and high evapotranspiration. So on average, the city receives approximately 410 millimeters of precipitation per year, which includes both rain and snow, and snowfall probably makes up the majority or a significant portion of this. Despite occasional heavy rainstorms, Calgary's dry and sunny days contribute to high rates of evaporation and transpiration. As a result, pre-development runoff is extremely small, with over 90% of precipitation returning to the atmosphere. The climate features cold, dry winters and very warm summers, often punctuated by sporadic, intense thunderstorms. These climatic extremes pose challenges for stormwater management and green stormwater infrastructure, as infrastructure must accommodate both snowmelt and sudden downpours. So as you can imagine, an urban environment with high impervious surfaces is not predisposed to facilitating such a high rate of evaporation. So looking at the graphs on the screen here, you can see that monthly evapotranspiration potential often exceeds precipitation. They also illustrate the projected changes to monthly precipitation and evapotranspiration, highlighting the importance of an adaptive water management strategy to future climate conditions. Let's go to the next slide here. Yes, so historically, wetlands in and around Calgary have played a vital role in natural flood control and stormwater management. Before widespread urban development, the region was home to thousands of prairie wetlands that are largely shallow depressions that would fill with water, sometimes permanent, sometimes temporary. During rain events, they would slowly release it over time. These wetlands acted like natural sponges, absorbing excess runoff, slowing the movement of water across the landscape, and reducing the intensity of downstream flooding. In doing so, they helped protect riverbanks, recharge shallow and deep groundwater, and maintain the ecological balance of the Bow and Elbow River systems. Unfortunately, as you can see in this image, it's estimated that over 90% of Calgary's pre-settlement wetlands have been lost due to urban expansion and land development. This loss has significantly reduced the landscape's natural ability to manage stormwater, making the city more vulnerable to flash floods and water quality issues. You can also see from this slide that some of the wetlands on the lower air photo have been preserved on the landscape. This is largely due to the province of Alberta's wetland policy, as well as the city of Calgary's wetland preservation plan. Let's move on to the next slide. So to compensate for Calgary's low natural runoff, constructed stormwater management systems, in addition to the preserved wetlands that I mentioned earlier, are designed to mimic pre-development release rates. So those are typically ranging. Release rates include from 0.8 to 2.5 liters per second per hectare, with average annual volume releases restricted to approximately, on average, 40 millimeters. So that's roughly, we're aiming for about 10% of the city's average annual precipitation released to the natural systems. So our constructed stormwater systems rely on nature-based infrastructure, including naturalized wet ponds, constructed wetlands, and low-impact development or green stormwater infrastructure strategies such as bioretention and resilient landscaping. Due to the relatively low release rate that I just mentioned, most of these wetland or wet pond, naturalized wet pond facilities are very large, occupying about 4% of their catchment area, or approximately 2.5 to 3 hectares in size. So you'll see a photo on the right-hand side. So very large facilities throughout the city of Calgary. Beyond managing water, these solutions offer multiple co-benefits. They can help with biodiversity enhancement, meeting wetland policy objectives, and contributing to urban livability by providing public amenities and supporting city building goals. Many of these features provide a prominent place in the in communities and neighborhoods within the city of Calgary. As Jacinth mentioned, I'm sitting on a committee that is integral to the implementation of the Calgary Stormwater Management Strategy that was approved by our City Council in 2023. Engagement through the development of the strategy led continually back to 4 key topic areas for us. We've called them cornerstones. These 4 challenge areas are evolving forces of climate change, customer expectations, and environmental pressures, and new techniques where they come into tension. So the first cornerstone brings to focus our established communities. Stormwater management is challenging in established areas. Once open space is limited, its existing systems are aging, and infrastructure that was designed with different data or approaches than with today, yet densification and climate change are impacting these areas acutely. The second cornerstone addresses managing our assets. Our asset inventory has grown, and the city, but it has also become much more complex as we add new infrastructure solutions. We also have, in addition to traditional pipes and catch basins, we also have oil grit separators, wetlands, rain gardens, and ponds that require sediment removal. Thirdly, we've come a long way with the design and maintenance and operation of low impact or green stormwater infrastructure, but we're continuing to refine the benefits and tailor these innovative techniques to their triple bottom line optimum for Calgary's watersheds and communities. Green and stormwater infrastructure for us includes nature-based solutions such as constructed wetlands, naturalized stormwater management ponds, bioretention, resilient landscaping, and green roofs. They can often offer a range of benefits from carbon sequestration to water quality improvement to hail resilience, as we are in a very hail-prone area. But costs, design, and optimization and maintenance remain tricky, and therefore focal to the strategy, and are things that I talk about every day in my day-to-day work. Our final cornerstone I'll mention briefly is our performance measures. So not just for the Bow River, but all its tributaries, as well as wetlands, riparian areas, and for the built or engineered parts of our system. So we're developing key targets to include peak flow rate, annual volume control, and water quality targets, which need to be considered relative to a changing climate amongst the other dynamics confronting stormwater management today. So the last I'll mention here is a case study as an example of green stormwater infrastructure that we have implemented in the city of Calgary, in the Dale Hodges Park. Dale Hodges Park is an example of a nature-based solution in Calgary. It blends ecological restoration, public art, and engineering. Located along the Bow River, which you can see on the right on the top of the screen in the photos there. It's in Northwest Calgary. The park was developed on the site of a former Clippert gravel pit that operated for over 60 years. The city of Calgary acquired the land in 2010 and transformed it into a 40-hectare natural environment park, restoring its ecological integrity and integrating stormwater treatment into the landscape. It serves as both a public park as well as a stormwater treatment facility designed to manage runoff from over 1,800 hectares of upstream urban catchment. The system includes features such as a settling pond, polishing marshes, and wet meadows, and is estimated to reduce sediment loads in the Bow River by approximately 50%. This is but one case study that I am happy to discuss further during the comment section of this webinar. But I thank you for the opportunity to share some of the ideas that we've been implemented in the city of Calgary based on nature-based solutions. Thank you.
I'm unmuted. So thank you very much, Reid, and thank you for this this presentation. You can see how the geography of Calgary, how it influences what your challenges and what you're facing. It's a nice, I don't want to say contrast to Boston, but certainly a different mix of circumstances and climate challenges. Our last presentation is from Finland and the city of Tampere. Unfortunately, our speaker, Anna Vehula, who leads the multi-country City Blues project, was taken ill suddenly and is not able to join us today. But fortunately, she prepared an excellent presentation on the City Blues project, and I'm pleased to share this presentation with you, with support on the chat from her colleague, Joanna Val, who's online and traveling today, so she also couldn't be on the video screen. So let's look at the City Blues project and what they've been accomplishing. This is a very interesting project that I was happy, and I'm very happy that we're gonna look at what they're focused on, because it brings together pilots from 5 Nordic countries. So let's have a look. Next slide, please. The project was looking at, first of all, preventing flooding and negative effects from climate change. And they brought together 5 cities from different countries to test out various solutions. And those experiences and the results from the projects will lead to development of a web-based tool for cities. Next slide. Interestingly, I think in this project, one of the feature that was that stood out was not only the pilots, but some of the information, the modeling information that supports the activities that they've pulled together through the projects. And I would encourage you to look at the first draft of the guidelines that emerged from that group of projects at the website link that's shown here. Next slide. So I mentioned that this project brings together 5 cities from 5 Nordic countries: Denmark, Sweden, Estonia, Finland, and Norway, each testing different solutions, NBS solutions, for different particular challenges, and altogether it's leading to an interesting set of lessons learned and guidelines. Next slide, please. Anna and Joanna wanted to focus on the specific experience in Finland, in the city of Tampere, and we'll look at what they have done there and what the results were. Next slide. So the project was implemented over a period of a little over 2 years. You can see that it started with preliminary studies in 2023, and then the execution of the project was over about 1.5 years, and they will be into a replanting and monitoring phase in the coming year. Next slide. So I want to bring your attention to some specific features that are quite interesting for this project. One is they did use extensive modeling during the planning phase to guide the design of the site. They also focused on selection of local species in collaboration with a Finnish organization called Wild Zone. A lot of implication of citizens through voluntary events, and you'll see some of those activities in a minute. And then also the use of foreign trees, part of the city's tree species experiment. Next slide. So you have a look at the site, which is still quite large, that has several various features: a vortex pond, a few alluvial meadows, and then a bottom dam. So that was all part of the Tampere pilot project. Next slide. And I mentioned earlier that they did model the water flows and the peaks, and to make sure that the design of the natural solutions would actually address the issue of the site. Next slide. And then you can see this photo is showing some of the flooding areas from the site, and then also the flood recurrence levels. So at 350 and 100 years. So let's have a look. We have some lovely pictures from the site prior to the project. Whoops, let's go back. Yeah, so that was when before the project started in 2024, winter and early summer. Next slide. So after 2025, you see some of the construction of the alluvial meadows, the pond, and also the bottom dam that raises the water level in a controlled manner to the floodplain. Next slide. And then this summer, this is what the site was starting to look like, and you'll see that there's vegetation will regenerate. And next slide. And then Joanna and Anna provided some insights on their lessons learned, which I think are very important from this. So next slide. So a little information on alluvial meadows. Next slide. So lessons learned. For them, stakeholder involvement was very important. You needed to get buy-in from the communities. Workshop was implemented, and some marketing, and then construction of the sites needed to be accepted also by the citizens. Next slide. And then a lot of planning went into the pilot, even though it was a pilot, a lot of planning. And they noted that the more diverse the group of experts involved in the work, the better the end result. High quality data was very important. And the last lesson learned is construction. And a lot of the oversight was needed, and also key was the experience of the company doing some of the work, and as well as machinery and equipment. Next slide. So you can see as well some of the site today. And final slide, please. For more information, please don't hesitate to reach out to Anna. And you have her email there. And also you can find information about the project and the pilots in other cities at the Cities Blues website. You have it listed below. I want to add a couple of things that Joanna has contributed to the conversation here. She indicated that the main goal for City Blues was to make the use of nature-based solutions and catchment-based thinking mainstream. So that's also why they're developing a very useful guide for municipalities in their projects with the lessons learned. And she also added to some of the points that were mentioned earlier by Kate and Reed, that first of all, in Finland, they are able to define the criteria for procurement so that the price is not the main factor, the main criteria in determining the winner of a tendering process. So it addresses something that Kate, you had raised in terms of a challenge sometimes in your area that you've actually now addressed through other processes. And she also mentioned that Finnish municipalities collect stormwater fees. So that's a practice in their country as well. So I'm inviting everyone to put in your questions in the chat. So thank you very much for that. And thank you, Joanna, for being on the chat with us from the train, and also to Anna for having prepared a very good presentation so that I could actually go through it. Hopefully I did it justice. I'll open the floor to some questions, and let me just look at the questions that have come out. So I'd like to ask, well, I'll ask a question to Kate and Breyer. So Kate, I was wondering, when you talked about the Green Infrastructure Volunteer Program, which I thought was really interesting in your example, what you're doing to involve the community in the maintenance going forward. I think that's something that really stands out. You talked about how you've adapted the volunteer program, but I was also wondering whether or not who provided oversight, and whether or not the volunteers had to have the training, etc. We know that plants also can be delicate, so you need to know a little bit what you're doing when you're maintaining the site. So that was a question for you in terms of this volunteer program oversight training. And then for Reed, I had a question regarding more the requirements for new developers in terms of the green infrastructure. And I just wanted to say I'm really interested in seeing some of the targets and the performance measures that the city is coming up with, and maybe that's something as well that we'll want to share. And with Kate, perhaps we can also share some of those guidelines for training. as well with the group afterwards. So those are two things that I thought, were quite unique. And I'm opening the floor to you, Kate and Briar, for answers to those questions.
Sounds great. So I mentioned that there was a pretty extensive negotiation process with the city's legal team to, to get a waiver put together that we were comfortable with. And one of the requirements was training and different types of training. So the program starts with a virtual training. So all the folks who sign up to adopt a site are grouped into kind of like a classroom style session, very much like this. Where we go through, foundations, how does green infrastructure work? Why are we using it? It goes through a whole section on plant identification and, basic activities we need people to do. And then there's a second training that occurs in person on site with each volunteer at the location that they're adopting. So I will say that in addition to the training that's done both virtually and in person, we also have a number of resources that we give to each participant. So there's personal protective equipment, gloves, safety vests, things like that are kind of essential when you're doing the work. But we also have a plant identification guide, a weed identification guide, and we encourage folks to use our phones now have plant identification built into their camera feature. So if you take a photo of a plant with either an Apple phone or an Android and you go into your Photos app, there's a little icon that pops up at the bottom that's either an eye or a leaf. And you can click on it and it will tell you what kind of plant it is. So just giving our volunteers the tools that they need to identify plants on site, and then encouraging them, if you're not sure what something is, leave it in place and send us a photo, and then we'll let you know if you should pull it out or leave it. We also do plantings and things like that. So if your feature is taken over by weeds, as sometimes happens, we'll encourage like large weed removal and then replanting, which the city provides the plants and the volunteers plant them. So a couple of different things there, lots of resources, 2 different types of training, and some good guidelines. So happy to share all those things with participants if they're interested.
I think that would be very appreciated. Thank you. Briar.
Yes, yeah, I'm happy to hear about your public engagement program as well, Kate. We're also looking at developing something similar in Calgary because I think even as an example, there is a bioretention facility that I was investigating this summer, where a community member had gone in and planted, I think it was chives and other spices, etc. And then they'd put little stakes in them, and I was like, well, yeah, okay, sure. So, yeah, and I think it indicates like a really interest in of neighbors to be involved, to stay involved with these green infrastructure solutions in their communities. So that was fun. To answer your question, Yasantha, we as maybe was evident in my presentation, we're very focused in this region on respecting the pre-development condition of many of our receiving water bodies. And so this has really driven many of our existing regulations for new communities with respect to post-development stormwater scenarios. So we're expecting that new communities are meeting what we're calling a pre-development release rate, simulating that evaporative regime that we end up. So that's the primary mechanism. We're often in this like wonderful position where we're not trying to improve the quality of our receiving water bodies. We're trying to keep it good, which presents its own challenges sometimes. But that often ends up with, we do have water quality and peak flow requirements for new developments, but we also have volume, average annual volume requirements for developers, sort of that we institute sort of at the outfall. As a consequence, we allow new communities to basically make, designers of those new communities to make their own decisions about which nature-based solutions make sense for them to be implemented to meet those watershed level targets. To date, this has largely resulted in quite a number of preserved wetlands, reconstructed or constructed wetlands, as well as just straight up preserved wetlands because of other policies relating to the provincial policies about wetland preservation. Those are the three mains that we see in new communities, less so green infrastructure. So typically in the city of Calgary, we are utilizing green infrastructure in situations where we have existing communities that need to be retrofitted, where there are more constraints that green infrastructure is better able to respond to.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. I have one more question from our participants, and then also one comment that I want to share. So the question is a follow-up for Kate. Is the volunteer program managed by the city or self-managed by each community or neighborhood?
Yeah.
And then how long does the RFP process take, like the new one, compared to the previous low bid system?
Yeah, so the city provides the overall management of the volunteer program, including checking in with volunteers. We're doing it quarterly. So we see, like at the end of every season, we would send out just kind of an email to all of our volunteers. Hey, how's it going? Let us know if anything has come up. We also have a maintenance checklist that again can be completed on your phone that we ask volunteers to fill out every time they go to the site. And that includes a requirement to attach a photo. So the kind of way that we're trying to facilitate that communication and that management of the program is, getting folks to submit the checklist. Yep, I removed litter. I did some weeding. I did some pruning. Oh, hey, a car drove through this rain garden. Here's a photo. And that kind of information, because Boston, we've got a lot of cars. So, that kind of information has been really helpful to us, but it also enables us to manage the program, without having to physically be on site all the time, which has been really wonderful for the city and for our, kind of publicly owned green infrastructure. Smaller neighborhood groups also do some like organizing of volunteer groups, which is really nice. So one person receives the training and they adopt the feature, and then they can bring friends to come help do maintenance. So it's both a city managed and a neighborhood managed program. And so far it's going pretty well. So it's great. And then the RFP process versus the RFQ process. The solicitation timeline is the same. So, the amount of time that we leave the bid open, and then people have to submit proposals versus quotes. The additional time, because there is additional time, comes on the review side. So the city does have to review the proposals, which, with a low bid system, it's whoever submitted the lowest bid wins. And so with the RFP process, it's a little bit more legwork for the city, but it does result in better projects and better.
Excellent. Thank you. So before I close the webinar, I'm going to direct all the participants to the survey. Ava has posted a link on the chat. So could you please go to the survey and fill in your impressions? We would very much appreciate your feedback. And now I would like to thank our speakers and all of you for contributing to the RURC's mission to advance innovations in sustainable urban development. I hope that the presentations and the innovations showcased today were a source of new information, and that sharing these experiences will add to your motivation to advance nature-based solutions in your area. A reminder that the fact sheet and the recording will be released after the webinar in a week or so, or maybe a little bit more, along with the presentations from our speakers, where you will find useful links. And then I'd like to thank as well, again, our speakers and Stephanie for joining us, and the team at RURC for being in the background and making everything run very smoothly. Thank you again, and have a good day, everyone.